Hey, what's going on, social media folks? So today we did the corned beef, and I told you hints and tips and tricks and things that we did with the corned beef, and I told you what I was going to do tonight, so it's time to start. So I apologize, or actually I don't apologize, because these are freaking awesome. I called Jim Carrey and talked to him about Jenny McCarthy, which they're not dating anymore, but I actually did meet both of them in Miami and had a great night with them one night when we were down there for the South Beach Food and Wine Show. So tonight we're doing a brisket. And I want to teach you guys about the brisket and how it works. So basically what I've done is I've pulled this 13-pound brisket out of the package. I've completely rinsed it off. And I have it laying this way because I want to show you the difference in the brisket and the two pieces of meat. So on a cow, if you see a cow standing like this, obviously because that's how we all see them standing because they don't really ever lay down. This part right here that you see in the cow is where the brisket comes from. And that's where the two muscles come together. One's the flat, one's the point. So this is the flat. The whole bottom side or top side in this situation, the way I'm having, is the flat. So now I'm gonna flip it over for you and you'll see that it kind of separated. There's a big, huge piece of fat, and we're gonna get into that too. It comes across as the flat, but this is your point. This is the piece of the meat that probably gets less muscle tension when the cow walks what he does. So this is a much better piece of meat. So what I'm gonna do throughout this process, and I haven't figured out how my video masters are gonna make this happen. They're just gonna have to do it because I'm on this side and they're on that side, and we're gonna make it perfect for you guys. But we're gonna run the flat. Then I'm gonna cut all this hard. This fat is super hard. We're gonna get rid of all that. I'm gonna trim this down. I'm gonna show you how to do that. And then I'm gonna show you how to basically separate the flat from the point to a point where we're able to pull the flat backwards and put all of our dry rub and our spices and everything here on the point. Reason we're doing that, because at some point we're going to cut the point completely off of the flat when they get to a temperature of somewhere between 195 and 200 degrees. And at that point, the flat will be done. The flat's a little bit leaner, where the point has much more marbling. It's a much more tender meat. What we're gonna do with the point is I'm going to cut it into 1-inch cubes. I'm gonna put a bunch more of the dry rub on it. Then I'm gonna smother it in barbecue sauce. And then I'm gonna put it back on the smoker while the flat rests so we can cut it and eat it. And I'm gonna do burnt ends with the point. This will all come together throughout the video. And at the end of the video, when you get to not taste my burnt ends or my flat cuts, the light's gonna go ding, 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 fries are done type of thing. So it's gonna be pretty crazy how this works out. It's gonna take me about 35 minutes to an hour to trim this brisket the right way so I can come back on camera to show you what I've done. I'll do it in stages to show you where we're at, because you've seen the different sides of the meat and what it looks like, and you'll see what it looks like when I'm done. And by the way, I talked about it earlier, the bone knife. This is a bone knife from my guys Mike and Scott at Ergo Chef. This is the knife that I'm gonna use to carve all of this fat and stuff off. The key to carving meat, so you understand, when you're trimming any kind of meat, it doesn't matter what it is, you cut off what you don't want to eat, and you don't cut off what you do want to eat. That's the key. And if you can do that, there's nothing wrong with leaving a little bit of the fat. This is gonna smoke for somewhere between 11 and 14 hours, depending on the meat, the texture, the marbling, those different things. So this is a long process to do a brisket. But at the end of the day, these will be some of the best pieces of meat you ever had in your life. Everybody's like, oh, ribeye, 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 ribeye. Great. This is a ribeye. You just have to know how to cook it. So you know what? I'll be back. We'll get this done. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be exciting. We're gonna drink through the whole process, because if you're not drinking, then you're not cooking. See you in a bit. Hey, so now that I've got all the trimming done, and you can see, honestly, from what you saw before, this is what really gets cut off. And some of this is so hard, it will never render. Yeah, it's fat and fat's flavor, but there's a differentiator between good fat and bad fat. See, I'm good fat. I'm not going to tell you what bad fat is, but anyways, so you can see from the bottom of it, you can see what I trimmed off. In some places I got a little bit heavy on the trim, but I still have this really good fat that's going to render over an 11, 12, 13, 14 hour smoke. So what we're going to do now that I've got to this point, is this is a really cool piece of the process. And this is where it really comes in, where you differentiate the flat, which is this piece, through here. And then you have the point here, which has so much more marbling, if you will, like a ribeye steak. So we're gonna come in here, and it's a hard fat, and you can see it kind of starts to pull apart. You can see the two muscles almost starting to separate as I pull through. So right there, I got a little bit deep to separate them, but we can come over here. So we're into it. Here's our flat. You can see this big flap and how it breaks down in through here, which I actually did. I'm actually impressed with myself. I did a really good job. I did a really good job trimming this, that you can differentiate the difference between the point that's going to cut off right here. Obviously, I'm going to come in and trim a bunch of this fat out before I do the dry rub on it. But this is so, look at it. This is filet mignon. I mean, this is ridiculous compared to this, where this is still a real dense, hard piece of meat. It's a much leaner piece of meat, if you will. So I'm going to go into shaving some of this hard fat. I mean, but look at this. Look how deep it gets. Look at that. I mean, I'm just barely trimming the top right now, getting that out, which I don't care how hot and how fast you cook this piece of meat, it will never render. It's just fat that's worthless. It's like this belly fat right here. It's tough to get rid of when you get old. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this trim piece, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna show the dry rub and how I'm gonna put the dry rub on. So we'll be back in just a few minutes once I get this all trimmed down. Hey, so now that I've got all the trimming done, this is ready to be rubbed, and we'll talk about the rub that I built in a minute. So we talked about the flat and we talked about the point. So what I've done is I've taken the flat and really separated it from the point, which the point is right here. So honestly, if you're looking at meat, and most people know steaks, this is your fillet. And you can see how I brought it across. So we're gonna cook it as a whole, even though it's almost separated, but it's not. So when we get done, I'm gonna cut through here, and then this is gonna be the point. And this is what we're gonna do the bird. It's so soft, it's crazy. Where this is a much tougher piece of meat, which is gonna take that time to render off. So we're gonna go through the rub now that I did. I'm gonna go ahead and put the dry rub on this. There's not, at this point, which this was our fat cap that I trimmed. There's not a whole lot of fat left. I've taken all the fat off. I've left a little bit of what we call good fat. We talked about that, good fat, bad fat. Bad fat, I don't know what good fat is, but anyways. This is good fat that will render down, that's gonna create flavor. It's gonna cook down. So the rub that I've done, this is probably one of the craziest rubs that I've done. I did a ton of research. I looked at 15 to 20 different rubs that people were doing. And I kind of took it and kind of made my own rub out of all of those. You know, if there's a recipe that you see, if you change 3 ingredients in a recipe, it just became your recipe. That's kind of the food world standard of things. So we got a little cayenne, we've got a smoked paprika, which I like. In some of my past videos, I'm really big on Himalayan salt right now, so I got some Himalayan salt, got some garlic powder, some granulated onion, black pepper, obviously, because I really like to do my barbecue more Texas style than anything because I'm really into the dry rubs. I'm not super into the sauces, but when you do burnt ends, which will be a different phase of this video that I'm doing for you, burnt ends were created in Kansas City. Kansas City barbecue is more of a sauce. Yes, they do dry rubs and things like that, but they enjoy their sauces as well, which the Kansas City sauce is a ketchup-based sauce, and you add to it. So we'll talk more about that at a later time. So we got black peppers, there's some oregano in here, there's some cumin in here, there's some ground mustard in here, and also some chili powder. So I've taken all that together, and this is what I came up with, my little shaker. If you could smell this, I had some folks over tonight that smelled my rub from the corned beef I did earlier and from the brisket rub, and they were all really, really excited about it. So the goal here is to get this to between 195 and 200 degrees with a really nice bark across it. I'm not going to wrap this brisket. Usually you get to 160, 165, and a lot of people will either wrap it in butcher paper or they'll wrap it in tin foil. I'm not going to wrap it for the mere fact that I really want to have the bark. And what you're looking for is a mahogany color. That's a wood. Mahogany is a wood. It's a dark wood. And that's the color that you're looking for. And that's where the paprika comes into. My rub, you'll see if you watch a lot of videos and things researching this, a lot of people put brown sugar in it for a sweetness. I didn't put any brown sugar. The problem with sugar burns. As soon as you get a burn from any type of sugar, it becomes overpowering. And that's not what you're after. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start dropping some rub on here, and you'll see it, you wanna hit your edges. So you kind of dump it in your hand as you're rubbing it and hit the edges. And that's how you get the edges. We're gonna come across here. We're just gonna rub. Well, we're actually pouring right now. But we're gonna rub it in. We're gonna get after it a little bit, own it. And the big key here, the reason that I did what I did with cutting the flat and the point apart and pulling out of all that hard fat was to be able to put rub on the point itself, because that hard fat will never render. It's never gonna render, so you're never gonna get any flavor from it. So we want to just coat this really nice and heavy. We're going to have a beautiful mahogany color. I mean, you can already see the meat's a little bit wet. You can already see that the color has started to change of this meat to that mahogany. So we're going to rub that in, pat it in real hard. We're going to flip it over. There you go. That's the color we started with, this pink color, before I started putting the rub on. So we're going to get after it a little more. We're going to just coat this really nice. So the recipe I did for the rub that I put together, I actually doubled just so to make sure that I had enough. But look at that. We'll let this sit here for a minute, and you'll see, you can already see where the moisture is. You can see it starting to turn that mahogany color. You guys are not going to believe, after this smokes for 10, 11, 12 hours, what it's going to look like and the bark that it's actually going to create. And that bark is just ridiculous flavor. It comes back to the prime rib comment that I made earlier. When I go to a restaurant and they're doing a prime rib night or something, I ask if I can have the end cut. That's where all your flavor is. Yeah, it's gonna be a little more done than the center of your meat, but all the flavor is in that, because that's where all your spices and your rubs and everything comes from. And that's what creates the flavor you're after. But at the same time, you don't want to overdo it, because you want the meat, you want to have the meat flavor at the same time. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna put this on the smoker. Look at that. Oh, look at, here's the point upside down. Look how just soft and jiggly that is. That's the best fat you can have. Look how this is just stiff. That's the point, or the flat. Sorry, flat point, flat point, flat point, flat point. So we're gonna take this out. We're gonna put this on the smoker. Thank you, Karen. So we're gonna come out here. We're gonna drop this on, and I know, because I trimmed it, I know what the fat side is, which is I have the fat side up. there's still more fat on the top side than there is on the bottom side. So I'm gonna put this side up, so I actually did it correctly, because it's gonna make it easier to put on the smoker. So we're gonna come on out here, we're gonna put it on the smoker. We're gonna put it out here on the smoker. It's 225 degrees. I'm gonna go to bed. I'm gonna wake up in the morning and see where we're at. So let's set this right on the smoker. So now that I have it on the smoker, I'm gonna do 2 different probes in the smoker. The key to, I really don't care how the I don't really care how the point cooks, because the point's what I'm gonna cut up into 1-inch cubes, pour more dry rub on, put in barbecue sauce, and I'm gonna put them back on for another hour. So the key is to get my flat to be perfect. And since my flat was a little bit thicker on one side, I wanna have a probe in each side to make sure that I'm evenly cooked. I may have to rotate it on my smoker, I don't know. So I'm gonna take probe 1, and we're gonna stuff it in the flat on the front side, and I apologize that my light's not good. And then I'm gonna take probe 2, and I'm gonna stuff it in the back side, which at this point, the back side was a little bit thinner than the front side. But like I said, I'm looking for 195 to 200 degrees on my flat, then I'm gonna pull it. And then where I showed you where I separated the point in the flat, that's when I'm gonna cut that off. When my flat's perfect, then I'm gonna let that rest. While that's resting, we'll come back, more rub, more sauce, hotel pan, half hotel pan, put them back on at that 225 degrees for about an hour, because I want that barbecue sauce and that rub to caramelize a little bit. So you all have an amazing night. I'm gonna go have a nightcap right now, and then I'm gonna go to bed. I'm gonna be up in the morning, and I'll be back with you. Talk to you soon. Cheers, everybody. So it's done 13 hours later. Well, at least the flat's done. 195 is where I'm pulling it from. So here we go. Let's see what we've got. Look at the color on that. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, don't want it to fall apart on me. Oh, there we go. So now we're gonna go in, we'll cut the point off, and we'll let the flat rest, and then we will cube this up for burnt ends. Here we go. Oh yeah. Look at that color. Look at it's just gonna pull apart. Actually, I was gonna get my carving knife out, but now my hands are dirty, so. Oh, look how tender that is. So there we go. There's our flat removed. Doesn't really fit in the pan. Stay there. So I'm gonna let that rest. Now we'll get into cutting up the point into 1 inch. We'll cut it here so we can get a nice square edge. 1 inch cubes, and these are going to be our burnt ends. Oh, it smells so good. Look at that color. Look at the smoke ring. Okay, so now we're gonna cut it into the 1 inch cubes. Then we're gonna put some more rub all over them. Then we're gonna soak them in a little bit of barbecue sauce. And then we'll put them back on the smoker and let that barbecue sauce just kind of caramelize. And I mean, honestly, this is probably the best bite in barbecue. Once you get it done, you get it right. This is really not the correct knife. I should be using a much longer knife. It probably looks like why I'm struggling with it a little bit. It's tender, but the bark on the outsides is tough, and obviously the bark's on both sides. As soon as I get through the bark, It's super tender. Great. Let's get this all in this pan. Let's put a little more rub on it. Toss it around. Basically just trying to coat all sides at this point. And then I was looking for a certain sauce and couldn't find it, probably because of COVID. So I'm using a Jimmy Bean maple bourbon. And just again, just trying to coat all the edges with it. Getting it all soaked in the nice barbecue sauce. Which I'm not a sauce guy, I'm really into the dry rub. But this is the way you have to do burnt ends. And these are gonna come out amazing. All right, let's go put these back on the smoker. I'm gonna have you lift the lid for me. Now you can see them out here in the light, how great those are gonna be. Oh, they're gonna be amazing. Throw these right back in the middle of the grill, shut the lid, and we'll be back with you in an hour with burnt ends. So hey, we're done with the brisket finally, so it's time to cut it to see how we did. Been a long process. It was on the smoker for about 13 hours at 225. Let's see. So this is the flat, and once we start cutting on this a little bit, we'll get into, look at that color. Holy smokes. Literally. Let's see how it looks. I know, it's killing me too. I just need to open it up here. Look at that. It's supposed to have a little pull. It's got a little pull. And then it's supposed to actually fold over on itself. I don't think this one's gonna fold over on itself without breaking. Oh, right at the end it broke. But hey, let's see how good it is. That's really good. Oh, so that. So let's look at the burn ends. Let's see how they came out. Oh, look at that. See if I can burn my mouth off. Yep. Perfect. Well, we're gonna go eat. And you're gonna wish you were here, but you're not. I miss y'all. Have a great night. We'll talk to you later this week. Bye.